Hey folks, this is Mike with a long shot. Today we're continuing our load development series with the Ruger Precision Gen 4. If you watched my first load development chronicles episode, I had 2 failure to fires on CCI 450 primers. After diagnosing and thinking about the issue for a little bit, I wanted to do a live test and talk about head spacing and why it's important in reloading, and then go to the range and see if we can actually confirm that the primer failure to fire issues I had were due to excessive headspace. Let's go. All right, so I'm here at my reloading station with the RPR Gen 4. Actually, we don't need that. I'll put that aside. Let's go ahead to Mike's 2A art corner. And I really do have to apologize. I am a terrible artist, and I tried my best to draw a picture to communicate and talk about head spacing today. So if you watched the first video on the RPR Gen 4 load development, I had 2 instances through trying a bunch of different loads where it looked like a decent primer strike, but the case did not fire. So after thinking about that, I was worried, oh no, I have a bad batch of primers, what's going on? Talking to Dave from Long Shot Precision, shout out to Dave, he's a lot of reloading knowledge. Also, go check out the adjustable bag rider. It's not just for the Ruger Precision, it's for any gun. He's got a ton of different options, and I really like it. We'll see that as I get to the range. No affiliation, no kickbacks or anything, just I love pushing products that are made in the US and work well. So go check that out, adjustablebagrider.com. All right, he said check your head spacing, and I think he was right. So I wanted to do a live video, another series in the chronicles of load development for the RPR Gen 4, just to see if the cases that did not fire were due to excessive head spacing. So what is head space? Well, you can see on this cartridge that I have drawn in a barrel. I have a bolt here, firing pin, primer, things like that. You can see that you have this shoulder, all right? When you hear people talk about precision reloading, they talk about bumping the shoulder back 1 to 2 thousandths of an inch. Instead of, I feel like 10 years ago, people were just neck sizing. Well, what that does is that when you push this case up into the chamber, your shoulder, the length of your shoulder, or the total distance, which we call headspace, basically, if you don't size that, usually with a bolt gun, you can jam that thing in there, but you really open yourself up to potential feeding issues. Now, on the flip side, if you have excessive head spacing, potentially when you pull the trigger and the hammer hits the firing pin, that firing pin may not get a good enough strike because that case is pushed too far forward and you have too far of a distance between the head of the case and the firing pin. So normally that's not an issue once you have fired your brass, or if you have already fired the brass in the gun and then you're just bumping the headspace back this way like 1 to 2 thousandths. However, when you get new cases, like I'm using these Peterson 6.5 Creedmoor small rifle primer cases, when you get new cases, they have to make them so that they fit in everybody's gun. They have to make them to SAMI specs. So we can look at new cases, and normally for custom build guns, I've never had an issue. You'll notice head spacing on new cases being anywhere like 6 to 9 thousandths compared to your fire formed case. Once you fire this expands the shoulder and pushes out against the shoulder in the chamber wall. So it basically fire forms your case to the, close to the exact size of that chamber. I've not really had any of those issues with my custom PRS 6 Creed build. However, looking at the RPR Gen 4 or just any RPR, I heard a few people say, I'm not sure there's enough firing pin protrusion, which means they don't think the firing pin is coming out as much as it should. That combined with excessive head spacing could mean that we're getting too light of a strike on the primer. That combined with the fact that I am using CCI 450s, which are Magnum primers, I generally prefer to use those for everything. I do believe that CCI 450s are a little bit harder to get to ignite because they're Magnum primers. I'll have to look that up. I'm not sure. That's just an assumption. So potentially if I had a softer primer, like a Federal Gold Match or something in there, it would have gone off. But let's go ahead and look Okay, also, you really need to get in touch with head spacing because that is the best way to set up your reloading dies. You should be measuring your reloading dies, you're screwing it down and bumping that shoulder back. Okay, I'm bumping my shoulder back for bolt guns like 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch, and that's plenty, but you really don't know how much you're pushing that shoulder back if you are not using a good micrometer with a headspace comparator gauge. I believe is this Hornady or Lee? I'm sorry, I can't remember. One of the red reloading companies. This allows you to measure on the datum point of the shoulder so that you can compare from a once fired case, which I have here, and this is the longest case of the 10 that I had fired. So I can put that on my calipers. Let's see if that focuses and zero that out. So you see that's zeroed to the longest fire formed case. Now, if I look at one of the primers that didn't go off, so this is still a charge case, so I'm going to be careful, but you can see that's a relatively decent primer strike there. Let's go ahead and see how much shorter this is head spaced than the fired case. So right there we can see that's 8.5 thousandths head spaced. Now, again, this is pretty common as far as new brass goes. I wouldn't normally think twice about it, but hearing some folks say, hey, maybe the RPR doesn't have enough firing pin protrusion, meaning it's not coming out as far out of the bolt as it can. And I'm sure there's some nuances there, like you don't want it coming too far because then you're piercing primers and that's not good. That'll definitely wear on your firing pin and generally not good to be opening the primers inside your chamber. That's my thought, is that that's the reason this didn't go off, because it was too far had too much head spacing. It was able to push far enough in the chamber and the firing pin was just light striking this in the back and not getting enough of a hit into the primer to make it go off. So what I've done and what we're going to do, we're testing this live. So I may not be able to confirm the theory, but I'm pretty positive that we are going to be able to confirm it today, is I went through and measured. These are all the cases we're shooting today are still not fire formed, because obviously now that I fire formed those, I can control the head spacing in my reloading process as I'm sizing them. I've loaded 3 cases that have what I would call like shorter or less head space. So you can see 6.5 thousandths on this one, 7 thousandths on this one, 6 thousandths on this one. So a little more reasonable head spacing on those. But I also went through and I loaded one that had similar and what I would call excessive head spacing. And this is going to be our test. So if my theory, you can see that's 8.5 thousandths there, which was exactly, oh, there goes my comparator, which was exactly the head spacing that I had on one of the cases that did not go off. Now, unfortunately, I don't have another 6.5 Creed that's not a Ruger Precision. I have the Gen 3 and the Gen 4. Otherwise, I would also confirm the theory by putting that in a different gun and seeing if it shoots, because I really want to know if this is a bad batch of primers, but I don't think it is. So hopefully I've explained all that. You know, again, pardon my terrible picture, but I always think of the chamber as just a slightly oversized profile of the bullet. But, you know, if that shoulder is pushed too far back, you know, if your shoulder is here, then that means the case can slide up further in the chamber and potentially you're not getting a hard enough strike on that primer. Now, what can you do about that? Well, that's difficult to know. I believe you could load the bullet super long and jam it in there, because the bullet would be putting pressure on the case from the case sliding forward when the firing pin hits it. However, I really don't want to do that test, because when you start jamming bullets, you could get pressure spikes. And I don't want to get in that territory because I've not done that before. I specifically load off the lands, not doing any bench rest or F-class or anything where they might be jamming bullets and not using magazines. So I'm not going to mess with that test today. I may consider it if we confirm this, or if we struggle to confirm it and I want to see if I do another type of test like that to help confirm or debunk the theory. So again, I've loaded those 3 cases with about 6 to 7 thousandths of headspace, and then I've loaded the one with 9 thousandths of headspace. And let's go ahead to my 100-yard zero range and see if we can confirm this theory. All right, folks, here at my little 100-yard zero range. Got the camera, phone propped up on a rock. That's been my favorite lately. Gonna get the chrono set up just because why not get data when you can. All right, love these things. Super easy to set up. All right, I'm gonna shoot 3 shots. The 3 shots that, or the 3 cartridges that I think are going to fire due to the head spacing. Again, these are all same powder. Oh, looks like I'm still a little too long for the mag. Shoot. This is why when I talk about seating depth, I don't care as much, because if you're shooting from a magazine, you're always limited to that mag length. So looks like we could fit 2 in there before it binds up. So I'll have to push those down a little bit further as I load. Going to shoot the 3 cases that I think are gonna fire, get some speed, just kind of see how they group. Oh gosh, that is annoying. All right, I think we're single feeding today. Shame on me for not checking that. It's not been the first time and won't be the last. So again, I expect these 3 cases to fire. That is weird. If you're running a Ruger Precision, let me know if you can single feed. I've had a friend that had the issue. Richard, you know who you are. Had the issue single feeding. Was told Rugers aren't meant to single feed, which I find kind of odd. Decent little group there. All right, now this is the one that is hopefully going to confirm my theory. I'm excited to see how much I flinch on this. I mean, not really excited, I'm joking, but can develop some really bad habits with flinching. All right, let's see if we confirm that theory. Oh man. All right. Well, that's interesting. I really thought we had something here. I'm still not convinced I'm wrong, but with these tolerances being so tight, it's really hard to tell. Let's go back to the reloading room and talk about it, see what we think. All right, so this is pretty good. So that was 4 shots, average 25.56 feet per second. Again, I'm shooting the Berger 140 hybrid targets. Extreme spread 15.9 feet per second, and standard deviation 5.9 feet per second. So that's pretty good. I noticed this tightened up last time when I had then resized and shot with Fireform brass. So that's pretty good. Loading with H4350, again, Peterson cases, CCI 450 small rifle Magnum primers. Again, you don't have to shoot Magnum primers, only in Magnums. I like it because it's just guaranteed to push that case out and ignite that powder, but you do have to consider you can't just go ahead and use max load and then swap out a Magnum primer. You could potentially be over pressure at that point. So you got to take into consideration that your load's going to be a little bit hotter compared to just regular small rifle primers. Personal preference, again, also I was able to source like a couple of cases of those CCI 450, so I found it better to just load that for everything because I have them same lot and helps me to keep consistency. All right, let's go back to the shop and talk about it. All right, so I'm back here at the reloading bench. Obviously, I'm a little bummed because I really thought I was onto something there. However, I'm still not convinced that wasn't my issue. Again, I'm just gonna make an assumption that even like a 1/2 thousandth of firing pin protrusion could make a difference. I'm sure if I did a whole bunch of testing, I could find that some of them went off and some didn't. But let me know what you think. I know there's a lot of expert reloaders watching this. Let me know if you think I'm onto something and I just need to do deeper testing. I'm just sensitive of not wasting a bunch of people's time and doing testing, going down a rabbit hole. But let's go ahead and hammer my point home about head spacing. So now that we fired these cases, oh shoot, I guess I lost my zero. So I'm gonna zero that off of the same case that I used to zero it before. And now I'm gonna take one of these new cases and see those new cases are now fire formed and that shoulder is pushed out. Remember before we looked at the one that was excessive head spacing, or the shoulder was bumped too far back, and that was like 8.5 thousandths. Now on this one, you can see it matches the other fire formed case. Now this is a pretty good indicator of the exact head spacing of that chamber in the Ruger Precision. Now that I have these fire formed, let's go ahead and might as well talk about how to set up your resizing die so that you're just slightly bumping the shoulders back. I do believe that this gives you just a little bit more feeding reliability and consistency across the board. Now again, this is specific to bolt guns. For gas guns, I usually push my shoulder back 4 to 5 thousandths. It's just a little bit, there's a lot more going on when you are feeding in a gas gun, and I really want to make sure those feed every time. You can't jam it home with the bolt, like you need those to feed. So let's go ahead and get my sizing. Okay, so when you're setting up your sizing die here, YouTube hates these reloading videos. It's super frustrating. Which, by the way, please go ahead, like and subscribe. And if you've made it this far, please go ahead and drop a comment. Any comment helps. It just combats the algorithm, which is anti-Second Amendment, and helps push these videos out. I think this is fun and interesting content, so any comment is appreciated, even if you think I'm doing it wrong. So what I'll do is I have my sizing die here. I'm gonna back it out a bit. If you get like a RCBS die set or any die set, they're gonna tell you, you know, screw it in until it touches the shell plate and back it off. That is not the proper way to set a die if you're trying to be as precise as possible. So what we do is when we back this off a bit, the first thing that's gonna happen is the case walls are always expanded out a little bit. So when you're actually gonna see the case grow a little bit, if you're using the comparator that I showed you, as it's full length sizing the body, those case walls are gonna squish in and that case is gonna grow. I mean, just a little bit, but let's make sure we're zeroed out. Okay, so we're zeroed out on the calipers now with the comparator. Let's see, make sure I back this off enough. Whoop, let me put some more lube on there. Using this Hornady One Shot, if I really wanna take my time, I use Imperial sizing wax, but I just moved and I have no idea where that is. I know you're supposed to let that dry, but let's send it, see what happens. Okay, so let's see if I'm right. As you're setting up the die, the case grows, so you can see, hopefully that's not flipped in the camera. You can see it's now 2.5 thousandths longer. Screw another quarter turn in. Still 2 thousandths longer. And this is just the initial setup. Once you get it set up and you lock that ring down, then you should just be able to send it for the rest of your batch. 3 thousandths longer. So what's happening is the die is just working its way down the case wall here, but I don't think we've had any contact on the shoulder yet. So, okay, oops, and see, I started working a little faster. So now what we're seeing here is I now have 1.5 thousandths of shoulder bump. So eventually that die was working its way further and further down. And I always think of the inside of the die just kind of like a replica of the picture of the bullet or the inside of your chamber. The profile, you know, kind of matches, just different sizes. Should be slightly oversized. As it's working its way down, finally the shoulder portion of the sizing die is hitting that and working that shoulder back. And that's why we now see our case is 1.5 thousandths shorter. So I think consistency always wins. I would lock that down there and then run it basically. I wouldn't worry if it's like, oh, 1,000th or 2,000th. And generally speaking, especially since I'm not using like match grade dies, I'm using a good press. Generally speaking, you'll see 1 or 2 thou variation across. I just try to keep it as close as possible and that gives me good results. But now that I have that shoulder bump back, that case should be good to go and it's fire formed, so it's closer to the shape of my chamber. The volume is going to be more consistent across case to case, meaning you'll get more consistent pressure, powder ignition, So all those things to say fire form is better. Unfortunately, it's not economical on barrel life and bullets to go get like 300 new cases, fire form those all, and then start load development. So with quality rifles, especially the customs, I've seen a little bit less consistency in factory cases in the RPR, but still decent enough that I would go shoot it at a match. However, if I was going to go shoot all this new brass at a match, I would definitely sort out those 9,000s headspace cases, because now I know there's a potential that they won't fire. Again, I'm not really convinced it's the primers. I've never had 2 CCI 450s in one sleeve that wouldn't ignite. I just ran all those primers in my 6th Creed for a 2-day PRS match, and I didn't have a single issue. So I'm not convinced it's the primers. I'll continue looking for different ways to test this and get back to you guys, but please, if you have any comments on if you think I'm right, if you think my theory is correct, or if you think I'm wrong and I just gave a terrible class on head spacing for no reason, please go ahead and comment. As always, I appreciate you guys and all the engagement the channel gets. It's a really fun project. Just telling it like it is. I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm not working anything behind the scenes. We're doing it live. So please follow the channel, and I'll bring you more reloading content to see how tight we can get this Ruger to shoot with different methods. Next, we're gonna play with some more charge weights and seating depth. So stick around for that, and we'll see you next time on the Long Shot. Take care.